On the Bernina 790, sometimes we make something so big that we might want to change the stitch density or change it from a satin stitch to a step stitch. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's say we were going to use the sizing capabilities and we're going to take one of the alphabets, just pick a single letter, and we're going to make it much larger, which is a benefit of this machine. When you can go into the eye, choose this sizing capabilities, and let's max out. Well, not really max out, but let's push it to the limits of the hoop size. So we're talking, we're over 200%, 300%, 400%. Yes, this machine will add stitches in, but let's just talk about what it is going to try to do. Number one, when you're here, these are satin stitches. So satin stitches used to be just a jump stitch, and they used to be much smaller. Well, now they're probably somewhere in the range of an inch or even bigger if we were to keep going. So you can actually come in to the eye for information, scroll all the way to the bottom. So right here we can change stitch density and stitch type. So if it's a satin stitch and we want to change it to a step stitch, this would be when it would change to so it doesn't go further than 8 millimeters long, and it will just put a little step in there. You could also change that to a smaller or bigger number. That's also good if you think about it. If that was a long stitch, you can easily snag it, you can catch jewelry on it, you can catch your fingernail on it, and that's going to snag, pull, and look awful. So changing it to a step stitch with that top function is part one of this video. The other option, and it will add enough stitches in there so it will look good, but you can actually change the density of the satin stitch. So normal percentage is what a normal embroidery thread thickness will fill in. So this might be used too when you might have a thicker thread that you'll be using, or a thinner thread. So a thinner thread would look more gaps. There'd be more gaps between the stitches, and a thicker thread might look like it's too dense and it might overlap and not look as pretty. So you can actually increase the density or decrease it. And I would always just try it out and see if you like it before you go further and do a little test. That would be the best way to find out. But sometimes if you ever have dark thread on white fabric, if you ever feel like you're seeing some of the white fabric through, that stitching is you can go in and add more density to it, and it'll add a few more stitches that might make it look a little bit more bold or covered when you're doing that high contrast. Same thing for white stitching on black fabric. That would also help see it. So a little bar goes across because it actually added a lot more stitches to that. Look at that. And remember, we did change it so instead of one long stitch, it'll do some steps in between and make it so it won't snag, pull, or rip after you're stitching. Now, one thing to note, this will take a lot longer to stitch because there are more stitches in here, and that's okay because it's going to look 10 times better.